We have been accused of misrepresenting Yaqeen Institute in our 50,000 word critique of their many deviant, heretical, batil-filled papers. I want to take the time to respond to these accusations, not because it matters what people think about me personally. I'm just another one of the countless Muslims who's deeply concerned about our religion being watered down and reformed and mixed with all kinds of wrong ideas. As Muslims, I know that you'll agree with me that we're not going to stay silent when a multi-million-dollar institute comes and brands itself as Islamic and traditional and then starts promoting things like gay marriage and liberalism and feminism and evolution and so much more. Speaking out is very important, and holding these institutes and their scholars accountable is very important. And I'm not the only one doing it, alhamdulillah. Many of you have also joined in and are independently holding Yaqeen Institute accountable, critiquing their work and showing examples of some of their most dangerous corrupting ideas. So in this video, I want to look at a specific Yaqeen paper and our supposed misrepresentation of it. The paper is by a Dr. David Jalajil, and the title of it is Tawaqquf and Acceptance of Human Evolution. Before saying anything else, let's just pause and appreciate that this paper is about acceptance of human evolution by Muslims. Just think about that for a second. Have you seen any Orthodox Islamic scholar or traditional Islamic institute ever promote human evolution and Muslim acceptance of human evolution? I certainly haven't. I've seen numerous Muslim scholars denounce evolution and especially human evolution, and some scholars have even said that accepting human evolution is tantamount to kufr. The point that I'm trying to make is that Yaqeen is introducing something new and unprecedented into the Muslim community. So let's begin by looking at this supposed misrepresentation. In our review, we quote, "It could be argued that Adam and Eve are mythical in the sense that belief in them rests solely upon a person's acceptance of the divine origins of the texts that speak about them." So according to Yaqeen, this quote is taken completely out of context in a way that distorts the actual intention of the author. According to Yaqeen, we partially quoted and made it seem like Dr. David is saying something that he really doesn't intend to mean. The full quote in the paper says, "If it could be argued that Adam and Eve are mythical in the sense that belief in them rests solely upon a person's acceptance of the divine origins of the texts that speak about them, then by the same logic, it is impossible for science to critique the special creation of Adam and Eve." Wow, that seems like a huge distortion. It looks like we really made a hatchet job out of this Yaqeen paper. Through dishonest selective quoting, we made it seem like Dr. Jalajil is attacking Adam and Eve, when in reality, he is defending them against scientific critique. Well, looks like we've been caught red-handed. But before you judge, let's zoom out a little bit and look at the context of the larger paragraph. Jalajil says, "The notion of Adam and Eve as mythical beings, though maybe not an excellent choice of words due to some negative connotations, is literally reminiscent of the way Sunni theologians have always looked at him, as a matter of the unseen, which comes under the category of the Sam'iyat, something that is known to us exclusively through scriptural sources without any empirical evidence. For believing Muslims, what matters is their conviction that those scriptural sources are from God and that they are accepted as true. In fact, this argument can be turned against the critics of religion." So from the full paragraph, we see that Dr. Jalajil does call Adam and Eve mythical. And not only does he call them mythical, he says that the way that Sunni scholars have always looked at them is as mythical beings. Now let's stop and think about this. This is shocking. You are talking about the father of humanity as a myth. Is this an appropriate way to talk about our father Adam alayhi salam? This is how we put it in our original review. Mythical. This is how we should understand our father Adam and mother Hawa as myths. It's unbelievable that a Muslim would speak like this, and even more unbelievable that a Muslim institute would publish and promote it. This is the kind of speech one expects from those Jews and Christians who have conceded that their religious books are nothing but allegorical stories of old. Now Jalajil and Yaqeen are trying to introduce these same concepts to describe Adam. What possible justification could there be to speak about the Prophet Adam ﷺ as mythical? But Dr. Jalajil and his followers jumped on this. They said, but Dr. Jalajil is not saying that Adam and Eve are not real. You're misrepresenting him. Where in the review did we ever claim that Dr. Jalajil is saying that Adam and Eve were not real? We never said that. And in fact, if you scroll down to the very next paragraph, we say exactly what Dr. Jalajil means when he uses the word myth. Jalajil tries to argue that Muslims can accept evolution and even the evolution of human beings without compromising Islamic creed or the Quran. This is possible because according to him, the origin of human beings is an empirical matter and the creation of Adam described in the Quran is part of the unseen and therefore akin to myth. Did they miss that paragraph? Even Dr. Jalajil in a blog post accuses us of accusing him of denying the reality of Adam and Eve. But I'm sorry, Dr. David, we did no such thing. The problem seems to be that Jalajil and these Yaqeen affiliates seem to think that the only problem with using the word myth is if you mean not real. And since Dr. Jalajil does not use myth in that way, that means we are misrepresenting him by criticizing him for it. But this is not the only reason why using the word myth to describe the Anbiya and the father of all humanities is inappropriate and wrong. Those who have no adab and have no sense probably won't recognize that calling Anbiya and Adam alayhi salam and his spouse as myths or mythical beings is inappropriate, but this is shocking. This is completely unacceptable. Our review of this paper expressed precisely this shock and disgust, and many of you also shared our reaction to it. But there's a deeper problem with Dr. Jalajil's use of the word myth. What Dr. David says is this: science cannot disprove the story of Adam's creation any more than they can disprove any other miracle. Such stories by their nature are accepted by believers on faith. Isn't this a good thing? Isn't it good if it's impossible for science to critique and evaluate the myths of Adam and Eve? Well, let's put it like this. Islam makes a claim: Adam and Eve existed and they had no parents. Now, the scientific establishment claims that this is false. What can Muslims say in response? There are two possibilities. Muslims can say science is wrong in this case because A, B, C, which is very easy because let's face it, science has a long track record of being majorly wrong before. Or they can take the Yaqeen and Jalajil route and say, well, Adam and Eve are a part of the unseen, the ghaib. And the ghaib is not an empirical question, so it's beyond science, and we can take it purely on faith. But this second option is bad for at least 4 different reasons. First of all, which scholar has called Adam alayhi part of the unseen, the ghaib, or the sam'iyat? How could they, when he was flesh and blood, got married, had children, and we are literally all his descendants? Jalajil doesn't cite a single classical scholar who says Adam was unseen. So on what basis is he making his claim? Secondly, if Adam is part of the unseen because science supposedly can't verify his existence, wouldn't all prophets be part of the unseen? Wouldn't all the history of the Anbiya mentioned in the Quran also be part of the unseen? And wouldn't all of this have to be considered as mythology? Wouldn't we have to call the Quran as a whole a book of mythology? Thirdly, there is empirical evidence for the existence of Adam, namely the human race. The human race, procreation, genealogical descent, all of this is evidence that we are descendants of a first father and mother. Furthermore, there's a great deal of genetic data and other evidence brought forth by scientists today that point to human origins from a single mother and father. By calling Adam and Eve a myth, Jalajil is denying the possibility of this kind of evidence. And fourthly, Jalajil's blind faith approach, mythical approach, completely undermines the applicability of the Quran. To understand this point, consider how many Christians defend against accusations of the Trinity being logically self-contradictory by saying that the Trinity is not bound by logic. These Christians might think that they're defending their theology and the Trinity, but in reality, they have conceded and admitted that a core part of their theology is irrational. This is the strategy that we see over and over again by many of these modernists. Whenever science or liberalism or psychology conflicts with Islam, rather than champion Islam, they quickly label that conflicting aspect of Islam as unseen or some other excuse so that they can avoid the conflict. They just want to be able to say, oh no, Islam doesn't conflict with liberalism or science or evolution. Perish the thought. There could never be a conflict between Islam and these enlightened ideologies. You can fully embrace these ideologies and still be a traditional Muslim. Yaqeen recently used this exact same dynamic when they accused us of misrepresenting them on their paper telling Muslims to affirm and advocate many LGBT rights, including gay marriage. We can break it down in exactly the same way. Islam makes a claim that same-sex acts are fahisha, and Muslims cannot support modern-day Qawm Lut. Now, the Western cultural establishment claims that this is bigotry and homophobia. What can Muslims say in response? There are two possibilities. Muslims can say the cultural establishment is wrong because A, B, C, or they can take the Yaqeen route and say,
or gay marriage, which you explicitly specified Muslims should support gay marriage under US law.
I said the right to gay marriage.
Yeah, okay. Same
Big
thing.
difference. Not the same thing. Big difference. I don't think Lut alayhi salam talked about gay marriage.
This kind of strategy and semantic game is used in so much of Yaqeen's work and the defense of their work that we might as well just call it a Yaqeenism. But Yaqeenism is not new. Christians and Jews have used the same exact strategy to hide and distort their teachings whenever they faced pushback from atheists and secularists. What ended up happening is that these Jews and Christians ended up rendering their entire religions as inapplicable to the world. Everything about those religions became a matter of blind faith or making a leap of faith. This is because when the atheists and the secularists accused Christianity and Judaism of being irrational, unscientific, immoral, rather than fight back, those theologians just shielded their entire religion from scrutiny by saying that, well, technically it's not logical, technically it's not scientific, technically it's not empirical, technically it's not rational, you just have to have faith. You just blindly accept on faith. But Islam is not like that. Islam does not conflict with true rationality and true morality. Not only does Islam not conflict with those things, but Islam is the pinnacle of rationality and the pinnacle of morality. We accept and champion Islam on the basis of reason and aql and our commitment to revelation. And yes, there are some things that can only be known through revelation, but not our origins, not the very basis of our humanity and where we come from. Allah has given us many signs and many ayat in the empirical world for us to see and establish beyond a shadow of a doubt that yes, we are the creation of Allah, yes, we ought to worship Him, and yes, we come from a single father and mother. So it's quite sad that rather than preaching this strong message, defending and championing Islam, we have these multi-million-dollar Islamic institutes that are pushing Muslims to follow these other religions down the lizard hole. Believe it or not, we haven't even talked about the worst aspect of this paper. So you might be wondering about Jalajil's original claim. It's possible for traditionally minded Muslims to accept human evolution without reservation and without having to reinterpret the text about the creation of Adam and Eve. How is this possible? Well, Jalajil explains himself in a panel session organized by Yaqeen.
And when you look at the text, we find nothing indicating what Adam and Eve encountered when they came to Earth. Even how long ago they came to Earth is not clear. And what they encountered here of other life forms.
Wait, well, what is he saying here?
So what about what Adam encountered when he came to Earth? Could he have encountered creatures that were hominids? So we see these skeletons of creatures that are walking upright.
Adam a.s. encountered hominids, humanoids. What is he saying?
They're related to other apes, and they were walking upright and used tools. Could he have created them through evolutionary processes? If he had willed to, he could have. We don't know. We have no textual evidence, which means we're not required to believe anything about them.
So there's no textual evidence of these human-like, human creatures?
Could Adam and Eve encountered beings that were biologically what a scientist today would define as human? The Quran and Sunnah are silent on that matter, so we should be silent on that matter.
So scientists define them as humans before Adam a.s. came to Earth. And he might have encountered these humans, according to science, at that time. Am I understanding that correctly?
If we're going to define human beings, that's an important thing. How do you want to define people? If we define humanity as...
Wait, how do we define humanity? Isn't this clear? Insan. This is something that is very clear in Deen. It's mentioned in the Quran over and over and over again. This word insan, which means human being in Arabic.
Adam's descendants. You could actually say, what is a human being? A human being by definition is a descendant of Adam and Eve, because the Quran says so.
Right, the Quran says so, that insan is a descendant of Adam and Eve.
By that definition, of course, human evolution would be false because you've defined humanity specifically as the descendants of Adam and Eve.
Right, evolution would be false because you've defined Adam and Eve according to the Quran, according to the word insan that Allah uses in the Quran.
But scientists don't do that.
Yeah, scientists don't do that because evolution is false. Have you ever thought of that?
But scientists don't do that. When a scientist asks about human evolution, they're asking about a specific species, and they're looking at particular physical characteristics, biological characteristics, certain forms, certain properties, metabolic properties, physical properties.
Yeah, so insan are also physical beings. Allah has created us in a physical form, and that is part of what it means to be insan. And when Allah says, لَقَدْ خَلَقَنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ, that indeed we created insan, humans, in أحسن التقويم, the best of forms, then that is referring to our physical bodies. Islam is defining what it means to be a human being physically, as well as spiritually and morally, and in terms of our descendants from Adam alayhi salam. All of these things are explicit in the Quran. We can't just take this word insan and apply it or think that it can be applied to other kinds of organisms or species that are human-like or humanoid or pre-hominid and all of these other terms that Jalajil is using to talk about, oh, what animals did Adam experience when he came down to earth?
If we understand that the Quran and Sunnah are silent about what appeared on the earth before, during, even after Adam's time, we don't know, then we have to be silent about whether creatures what a scientist would call human, was they're looking at things on a completely biological level.
So the human body, as Islam defines it, is also biological.
Then we have to be silent about whether creatures what a scientist would call human, was they're looking at things on a completely biological level, could have existed beforehand. And if those beings could have existed, then it's not a matter of religion. It's not a religious question. If you want to believe that these beings may have existed, you're free to do so as a religious person. If you want to disbelieve it because you're just uncomfortable with it, or you just think the scientists don't have a good argument, that their evidence is weak, then that's also a Muslim is free to do so. It ceases to be a religious question.
Okay, so you can believe it if you want, you can not believe it. It's not a religious question. Just anything goes. This is complete capitulation to the scientific and evolutionary narrative. Muslim beliefs can be anything regarding these human-like creatures that are non-Adamic, not Bani Adam, but they're exactly like humans, whether they existed before Adam and after. Muslims don't have any kind of theological beliefs about this, so we can accept anything, and therefore we can accept human evolution as science describes it.
They all agree that there's something special about Adam's creation, which means other life forms, other beings, even humanoid beings, could have been created by different processes. We would have to make a position of non-commitment on that. We don't know.
So see, he acknowledges special creation of Adam a.s. That's not the problem. The problem is that he's postulating these human-like creatures that he could have encountered when he descended from Jannah.
And this frees Muslims to accept evolution, even human evolution, as a biological account of the origin of this genome or of this species, while completely embracing the traditional understanding that Adam and Eve were created without parents, and Allah honored them and made them the ancestors of human beings today. We can all trace our lineage one way or another back to that couple.
But the scientific account says that humans evolved from a common ancestor of apes, and then prior to that, bears and horses and kinds of prehistoric dogs and cats and whales, and ultimately all the way back to amoebas and bacteria. So if we accept this, as Dr. Jalajil and Yaqeen say that we can as Muslims, then that means that we're not just Bani Adam, we're Bani Amoeba. As an Orthodox Muslim, you might have thought that you had no monkeys in your family tree, but according to Yaqeen and Jalajil, you do. At least that's what science says. And as a Muslim, you can't dispute science, and there's nothing in the Quran and Sunnah that contradicts that, supposedly. So if we look at the Yaqeen paper, Jalajil says all this explicitly. He says, what matters is that belief in Adam's direct creation does not prevent Muslims who hold that belief from accepting the possibility that beings who are biologically human could have evolved on Earth from other species, beings identical in every way to the descendants of Adam. He further says, Adam's descendants can be seen as full members of the broader human family. This is crazy. This is insanity. What do you mean, broader human family? Insan is only the descendants of Adam. How are you saying that there's this broader human family that includes non-descendants of Adam that are identical in every way to the descendants of Adam? This is pure unadulterated deviance. It doesn't matter how many times Jalajil says the word orthodox or traditionally minded, or whether he acknowledges the fact that Adam a.s. was especially created by Allah. None of that takes away from the deviance of what he's proposing here. The entire significance of Adam a.s. being the father of all humanity is that he is not only the spiritual father of all humanity, he's also the biological father of all humanity. We all trace ultimately our descent to Adam a.s. If there were prior ancestors that we had, then we wouldn't be Bani Adam, we would be Bani Amoeba. Now you might have thought that the craziness was over, but we're just getting started. Here is another quote from Jalajil's Yaqeen paper. The Quran addresses its audience as Banu Adam. This provides a strong implication that all human beings on earth at the time the scripture speaks to them are direct descendants of Adam. This remains true even if Adam's descendants intermarried with members of pre-existing populations, as long as everyone shares their lineage with Adam in some way. What do you understand this to mean? If humans intermarried with pre-existing populations, again, that means that you have maybe birds, dinosaurs, apes, snakes in your family tree. And the crazy thing is, he thinks all of this is completely orthodox. And apparently Yaqeen thinks this too. Now listen to how Jalajil addresses this issue.
The question that was submitted for you, Dr. Jalajil, is doesn't your interpretation of Adam's origination make it possible that the descendants of Adam procreated with animals?
Look at this type of question. Is it possible that the descendants of Adam a.s. procreated with animals? These are the types of questions that Yaqeen has introduced to the Muslim community. These are the types of questions, bestiality, and talking about bestiality with the name of Adam a.s. just casually, just asking this question. The possibility of this question comes from Yaqeen introducing Jalajil and his nonsense, publishing it and distributing it and spreading it.
Before I address the question, I understand the question, but we have to deal with the issue of animals. And the defining animals would be very important. What is an animal?
Defining animals is very important. Look, he doesn't say no. The obvious answer, no, the descendants of Adam alayhi salam did not procreate with animals. He takes the Yaqeenist approach. He introduces another Yaqeenism that, well, we have to define what animals are. What are animals?
Islamic theologians have always referred to human beings as animals, or hayawan. Hayawan means to be animated or to have life. And that separates animals from plants and from minerals or rocks. That was a traditional understanding of things. Whether evolution is true or false in general, the idea of the human being as an animal, it wasn't considered pejorative. Hayawan, meaning living or animated, was always accepted. And the ancient Greeks talked about the human being being the hayawan natiq, or rational animal, an animal with the distinction of having reason and language. If Adam procreated with Eve, it would be considered having procreation with an animal.
Did you get that? Adam procreating with our mother Hawa is procreating with an animal. This is the complete lack of any kind of adab this guy has to talk about our mother Hawa in this way, and our father Adam alayhi salam in this way.
So the issue of human beings being animals would not be the issue. But I think the question is, could Adam could his descendants have procreated with the descendants of pre-existing beings that already existed on the earth that were not from his descendants? I believe that is a question. Whether we're going to call them animals or not is a separate issue.
What do you mean it's a separate issue? You just said that humans are hayawan natiq. They're the rational animal. And are you saying that these other pre-Adam humans or humanoids are not natiq? We can't call them animals, or we should, or it's ambiguous. This is Yaqeenism.
To look at this, you have to look at what does the Quran and Sunnah say. I mentioned that it's silent about what appeared on the earth before Adam appeared. What we know for a fact from the Quran and Sunnah, what is a matter of consensus among all jurists and theologians, is that we are descended from Adam and Eve. As Yasser al-Qadi said, all of us are descended from Adam and Eve. We can trace our lineage back to Adam and Eve.
And we can also trace our lineage back to amoebas.
The question remains, what if somebody wants to speculate or hypothesize that Adam's son or grandson or great-great-grandson married a person that existed in some previous time that was not a descendant of Adam, that was already there? Would that contradict with what the Quran and Sunnah are saying? Now, if Adam's great-great-great-grandson had married the last surviving person from some pre-existing population of biological humans, and they had children, those children would still be the descendants of Adam and Eve.
And the descendants of amoeba.
And so on that basis, you could say that we can't say with certainty that we cannot rule that out with certainty on the basis of what the Quran and Sunnah are actually saying. But if someone says, is it possible? Can we say for absolute certainty with yaqeen, because yaqeen is the issue in all matters of aqidah, you must have yaqeen. Can we say with yaqeen or absolute certainty that it didn't happen based on the strength of the textual evidence? No, we cannot say with certainty it didn't happen. You would have to actually make tawakkuf on the matter.
Yes, you can say with certainty. When you say that we're Bani Adam and that we are insan, that has a defined meaning in Islam, that you can't just go and yaqeen all up with these kinds of games.
You may not want to believe it, and no one is expected to believe it. There's not a matter of belief. There's absolutely no evidence in the Quran and Sunnah to say that there were any beings that were like humans before Adam came.
You can only say that there's no evidence because you have relativized the meaning of words. And you've said that words can be applied however you want. You can use them according to the way science defines it, or in other ways. You've completely opened up Pandora's box to this kind of semantic mess.
So there's definitely no evidence to say that anybody intermarried with those beings. There's no evidence whatsoever. It's not a matter of faith whatsoever. But would it be a matter of faith to deny that possibility? You would need clear-cut evidence to say it's a matter of faith to deny that possibility.
Jazakallah khair, Dr. Jalal. So I'm just going to take over for Sister Fatima.
So Yaqeen's research director, Nazar Khan, didn't really have a problem with all that shocking mess coming out of Jalajil's mouth. That's telling. This is a chart summarizing what Jalajil is arguing for. Adam was a special creation, but when he came to earth from Jannah, there were these human-like beings who were the products of evolution. Then Adam's descendants, or maybe even Adam himself, procreated with these human-like beings. So with this story, Muslims supposedly can accept evolution and Adam's creation being miraculous and all humans tracing their lineage back to Adam. The problem is this would also mean our lineage would actually go back to beings way before Adam. It would go back to pre-hominids, apes, dogs, all the way back to the amoeba. In fact, according to this, more of our lineage is to be found with non-human organisms than with Adam. Furthermore, this means we have to accept that the noble Anbiya, Nuh, Ibrahim, Musa, Isa, all of the Anbiya, including Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, are all descendants of frogs, fish, and insects, or are distant cousins with them. Jalajil sees nothing contrary to Islam in any of this nonsense. In reality, his scheme completely undermines the Islamic conception of insan and the noble creation, the special creation of insan, and our exclusively Adamic origins. So you might think that this craziness is beyond belief and that no Muslim would accept these kinds of views. But Yaqeen's director, Nazar Khan, was there and you saw that he had no problem with it. Yasser Qadi, who was also there in that Yaqeen panel, didn't have any objections to the idea of Adam and Adam's descendants mating with animals. That's the Yaqeen effect. Mainstreaming the most heretical, deviant ideas. And here's one of Yaqeen's most valuable interns making some interesting statements on Twitter. He was asked, just so we're clear, do you accept the overwhelming evidence that human beings share a common ancestor with chimpanzees, which would contradict the Quran? No, I don't believe that contradicts the Quran. Adam and Eve were created. Their children mated with other hominids, hence genetic variation. Humanity today are the children of Adam genealogically, i.e. Ibn Adam. Not hard to grasp. Wow, so much yaqeen in that short tweet. So I ask you, the audience, did we distort or misrepresent Yaqeen in any way? Go and read the paper yourself. Read our review of it. Then judge. Go watch Jalajil on video spewing all of this nonsense. Just watch out for all the Yaqeenisms. And watch out for Jalajil spamming the word orthodox and tradition, traditionally minded over and over and over again. He uses these words a combination of 24 times in his article. But we should ask ourselves, is Jalajil himself an Orthodox Muslim? Is he a traditionally minded Muslim? Stay tuned for the answer to that. And one more point about our supposed academic dishonesty. Yaqeen was so confident in calling us academically dishonest that they orchestrated this entire social media blitz in order to attack us on this point, specifically with this evolution paper. They were so invested in calling us dishonest that they brought one of their senior research directors, Sheikh Tahir Wyatt, to publicly go on a platform and call us dishonest, lacking academic integrity. They even got the original author, Jalajil himself, to write a blog post also calling us dishonest. And a few volunteer interns at Yaqeen have been spamming posts and articles all on this issue of us misrepresenting this evolution paper. This became a whole social media spectacle created by Yaqeen. They put all of these resources into this one issue of if for the specific evolution paper because this was their best case. This was the most egregious example of how we misrepresented them and distorted their work. This was the best chance for them to prove once and for all how we're dishonest. This was their best case and they completely and utterly failed. Now I have an action item for you. You should make your voice heard. You should express your disgust. You should express how you're tired of this watering down by Yaqeen or by whoever else. You need to make your voice heard, that you're no longer going to tolerate this type of distortion of Islam. Don't just share this video. Don't just share a link to our review. You make your own video. You make your own article. You make your own post. You call out this kind of distortion at the hands of Yaqeen Institute and whoever else who dares to corrupt this deen. When Allah says, وَاعْتَسِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا, this means that we come together and hold firmly to the rope of Allah, meaning we hold fast to the truth. The haqq unites us. And when there's this multi-million-dollar institute with counter-extremism links and all of this nonsense coming and trying to introduce all of these distortions, we have to be united in rejecting this and calling this out as unacceptable. May Allah protect us, protect you, and keep us all firmly on the haqq. Increase your faith in Islam with unapologetic answers to these kinds of doubts, then consider enrolling at Alesta Institute.